Welcome back to Morning Joe. Live look at Washington, D.C., a foggy, rainy, dreary morning. Joining us now, Chief Washington Correspondent for The New Yorker, Jane Mayer. She writes in this week's New Yorker about Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, calling him, quote, enabler-in-chief, whose refusal to rein in President Trump is looking riskier than ever. Jane, I'd love to hear your central focus of the piece, but I'm also very interested. You look into something that's often not talked about, and I think it's something we haven't looked at on this show enough, and that is that his wife, Elaine Chao, is in President Trump's administration, and there are lots of different ties that stand out as important here. Can you talk about Mitch McConnell's wife, that connection, and potential conflicts or explanations?
Well, one of the things that was interesting when I was doing this reporting was that Elaine Chao is such a player in her own right. And when Trump was elected, Mitch McConnell took an unusual role where he promoted his wife for a cabinet position. He called them up, and basically it was his ask of Trump. And Trump, I talked to some people in the transition team, some senior people, who said they were expecting that maybe they would make her labor secretary, as she had been during the Bush administration, but she wanted transportation, which they saw as a bit of a problem because her family has a giant shipping company that does about 70% of its business with China. And they thought of it as possibly a conflict of interest, but they also really wanted her on board because they wanted Mitch McConnell on board. So they gave her the job. And since then, there have been allegations that she, as transportation secretary, has favored her husband's state, Kentucky, by giving it more grants. There's an internal investigation taking place in the transportation department on this. She's denied it. The investigation is ongoing. Politico has written some terrific stories about this. And the irony is that rather than it being seen as a scandal by Mitch McConnell, instead he's made an ad in Kentucky where he's up for re-election claiming, you see, I can bring home more bacon, basically more transportation grants to my state. So it's kind of a self-licking ice cream cone going on there.
Yeah. Casey Hunt has a question for you. Casey? Wow.
Terrific piece, Jane. I stayed up probably later than I should have after my show last night to get all the way through it. And I have to say, we teased the part where in private Mitch McConnell has called Donald Trump nuts. And, all of us who are here in Washington, I think, have picked up on some version of that or at least I have in the halls of the Capitol. But I was fascinated by the conversations you had with people who have been supporting Mitch McConnell in Kentucky for many, many decades, and the disappointment that some of them seem to have expressed to him in private about how he has interacted with this president and the damage that he is doing to the country in their view. Can you kind of walk through who these people are and what they're saying to the majority leader behind the scenes?
And actually, thanks for asking, because I think one of the real pieces of news in this story is that some of the tremendous backers that Mitch McConnell has had in the past. In particular, there's a man named David Jones, who is the co-founder of Humana, the healthcare company that's a giant, one of the biggest employers in Kentucky. And he's been with Mitch McConnell, backing him since 1984. He's put millions into a center that McConnell has built, an academic center down there. McConnell has called him the most influential friend and mentor in his entire career. What I discovered was that privately, David Jones has sent letters to Mitch McConnell. David Jones and his son sent 2 letters that basically say, stand up and lead. You have the power in the Senate. You are, under the Constitution, supposed to form a check on the president when he's errant, and you're not doing it. And they are, as close to Mitch McConnell as you could possibly get. David Jones died last fall. His sons are still alive. I've got copies of the letters and Mitch McConnell's response. And what you see is, I think, a tremendous disappointment that the watchdog has been asleep at the switch. The Senate has not taken this leadership role. And there are a lot of people in Kentucky who are very disappointed because they think that Mitch McConnell could have done a lot better. When history looks back, they're going to see that it was, that he didn't do this job.
Jonathan Lemire.
So much of the compromises that people have said that Mitch McConnell has made in terms of dealing with this president in order to enact the conservative agenda, and particularly installing conservative federal judges. So my questions for you are this. Could you just simply give the American people an update? Is that's continuing, correct, apace during this pandemic? And also, do you have any hesitation in saying that were a Supreme Court seat were to open up, whether it be this spring, summer, or fall, despite the precedent of Merrick Garland, is there any hesitation that Mitch McConnell would not try to fill that seat while President Trump was still in office?
Well, I'll just take Mitch McConnell at his word. He's been going to big donors in the Republican Party and promising that if Ruth Bader Ginsburg were to die before the election, even if it were, or have to withdraw, vacate the seat for some reason, health reasons, that it would be, as he's been putting it, our October surprise. He's been promising them he will fill that seat. So, no, I don't have any doubt that he will go for it. That's exactly what he has said he plans to do. And he's put, I think, something like just under 200 conservative judges on the federal bench. This is his legacy project. This is what he's putting all of his energy into. It was where he was in the beginning of the weekend when things really started to fall apart in the country on the coronavirus. He was down in Kentucky going to a judge's sort of investiture and celebrating with the judge. I think it's the way he wants history to judge him, people tell me. But what it said in that letter from David Jones, his tremendous backer, was, what's the point of putting judges on the bench in a country where the republic is crumbling around you? Stand up for democracy is basically what his donors are saying to him.
Jane Mayer, thank you very much. The piece is in the new issue of The New Yorker.
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.